In some countries, labor camps are still used and enforced, but none were or are as bad as Joseph Stalin's 1933 horror camp. This was a mass deportation of 6,000 to Nazino Island. They were forced to the island and tasked to build a settlement there, but they were given little flour as food and almost no clothing or shelter. And if you wanted off the island, guards would shoot to kill. Due to these conditions, with only 13 weeks, 4,000 had died or disappeared. What happened, are you wondering? A grim tale of dying or having to resort to the worst kind of measure. Strangely enough, most of the deportees were from Moscow and Leningrad because they couldn't obtain an internal passport. Quick side note, the citizens had to get internal passports in the Soviet Union because they wanted to cleanse Moscow, Leningrad, and other major cities. All of the deportees were either former merchants and traders, peasants who had fled the ongoing famine in the countryside, petty criminals, or anybody who did not fit into the idealized worker class structure. Their backgrounds meant they were not issued passports, and they could be arrested and deported from the cities after a summary administrative procedure. Things went south before they even touched the island, though. When the train arrived there, the criminal groups beat other prisoners and stole their food and clothing when there barely were any. In the same camp, a riot broke out on day 2 because the passengers were demanding drinking water. Needless to say, it was swiftly put out, and the real meat of the story begins on Nazino Island. The barges unloaded their passengers during the afternoon of May 18th on Nazino Island, a swampy island about 2 miles long. By the time they set foot on the island, they counted 322 women and 4,566 men. And can't forget the 27 that died on the way there, but they may have been the lucky ones. The same day, foreshadowing of the massacre was revealed over flour. A fight broke out and guards fired on the deportees as the 20 tons of flour were deposited on the island and distribution began. The flour was moved to the shore opposite the island and distribution was tried again the next morning, with another fight and more firing. After that, all flour was distributed via brigaders, who collected flour for the brigade of about 150 people. The brigaders may have been worse than the guards. They were often criminals who abused their positions, but we'll get back to that later. The island was bare, so no ovens or anything, with the only food being flour. But again, no ovens, so some of the deportees ate it raw and suffocated, but most of the deportees mixed flour with water, which led to them getting dysentery. In simplified terms, dysentery is essentially an infection of the intestines, resulting in severe diarrhea with blood in the feces. Yeah, with no toilet paper and on a bare island, not fun. Clearly, in a dire situation like this, the deportees attempted to escape, but as you probably guessed, it ended in complete failure and death. The deportees crafted rafts to try to escape, but most, if not all, of the rafts collapsed due to poor building, and hundreds of corpses washed up on the shore below the island. If they escaped some other way, they were swiftly dealt with. Guards hunted and killed other escapees as if they were hunting animals for sport. If they managed to get over the river and escape the guards, the taiga force was so extremely harsh to life that they were instantly presumed to be dead. Essentially, there was no escape, and what was waiting for the others who stayed turned out to be much, much worse. Then it happened, the catalyst. Soon after the deportees were on the island, Stalin rejected the plan. But the deportees were already on the island. Any semblance of order quickly fell apart. Panic was taking over. The majority of the population were city dwellers, most of whom knew nothing about agriculture. Things like clearing and cultivation that would make the island habitable. The scarcity of resources led to gangs forming who used violence to dominate the settlers. People were easily and frequently murdered in fights over money and food, and if their body had anything valuable, then after they were killed, they would be robbed too. The guards, not being ones to be shown up, started a reign of terror of their own, extorting the settlers or executing them for the small and most insignificant things. Remember the brigaders? Yeah, hungry people looked to them to do their job, but they hoarded it for themselves and demanded steep payments for a small amount. After this, it was over. People in gangs began to kill people to eat them, and if they were unlucky, they would be eaten alive. They would eat anything they could get their hands on. Breast, livers, heart, limbs, anything. One woman stated they held her down and cut her calves off and ate them right there. Thankfully, she survived, but many did not. In the midst of all that, during the heat of it, about 1,200 more deportees were sent there. Finally, they were moved and the settlement dissolved. The surviving 2,856 deportees were transferred to smaller settlements. Several hundred more died during the transfer, with 157 not able to move from the island for health complications. But no happy ending for those who did survive the journey, because they found themselves on a smaller settlement with little food, tools, and an outbreak of typhus, but a lot less murder and cannibalism, so a plus? Out of the roughly 6,000 people on the island, about 2,000 died and another 2,000 had disappeared and were so presumed dead. All of this within a couple of weeks. Nazino Island, however, was directly responsible for the end of large-scale settlement plans in the Soviet Union, and the end of using deportees from urban declasse elements in criminal backgrounds for future settlement plans. Truly the worst of the worst. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe for future content. Have a good one.